You're listening to the Growing On podcast, where we dig into the heart of Georgia agriculture. Each episode, we explore the people, stories, and issues shaping the fields, farms, and food that keep our state growing strong. From the latest in ag policy and innovation to timeless farming traditions, we're here to keep you informed and inspired. Here's your host, John Holcomb.
All right, I am in Athens, Georgia, here on the campus of the University of Georgia. Go Dogs. Very proud of that degree that I got from here, but I'm sitting across from Dr. Nick Fuhrman, also known as Ranger Nick. How are you, Nick?
I'm doing great today, John. Thanks so much for inviting me to be part of this.
Yeah, thanks for the time. I know you're a busy man, but Nick is the Associate Dean of Outreach for Warnell School. I say that right?
I am. You got it.
Okay.
You know, the longer the title, the less the importance. So that's how that goes, right?
Well, like I mentioned, I work for the Farm Monitor. Everyone that listens to this podcast, I mention that at least once an episode. But you're a big part of the Farm Monitor. You have a monthly segment on our show. And so I've known you also since my tenure here, going on 9 years. You've been a part of the Farm Monitor for, you said 12 a minute ago.
12 years, yeah.
Crazy to think about. Time flies. But I thought this was a great fit of sitting down with you. You have a wealth of knowledge. You're very enthusiastic, very energetic. Number one, I need to know, first question for you. This is a serious question.
Okay.
Where do you get the energy? Every time I see you, you're always really enthusiastic and very energetic. How many cups of coffee do you drink? I'm just kind of curious.
That is the running joke. How many gallons? Look, it's 2 cups, normal size, not like a gallon, normal size. I wake up like this, John. I can't help it. I love being around people. I love teaching.
Yeah.
I figured out that that's what I'm probably the only thing I'm good at, maybe, is talking and teaching. And that's what I do every day. And I just absolutely love it. And that's something that others have asked me. And my wife, is he always like this? She says, yeah. And
That's
our
hilarious.
kids are like that too. They got it from me. So it's always, I feed off of others' energy. And
That's
I
awesome.
just, even from the TV side, I don't see the reactions on the other side of the camera, but I can envision somebody sitting at home, giggling, smiling, going, look at that guy. He sure does love what he does.
Right.
So that's a fact.
That's awesome. I asked that because it's a joke amongst everyone that knows me. I drink like an energy drink, cup of coffee, sodas all day long, and I'm still like, I'm over here like 2 p.m. like over here like fighting off a nap. It's crazy. But anyways, thank you for having me for real. I'm glad that we could make this happen. We're at the Georgia Center, so if you hear any noise, any people walk by, anybody listening, that's where we're at. It's a little, we're not like in a studio or anything, but. Nick, I want you to introduce yourself. Talk to me about and tell the audience, who you are, a little bit about yourself, your background, things like that. People would be interested in knowing about you.
Oh, gosh, thanks for asking. So I am Nick, and I like to say I'm Nick or Ranger Nick. I don't say Dr. Fuhrman. That's true. I am Dr. Fuhrman, but I always say that's not who identifies me. That's not who I am. I'm Nick. I'm a person that loves to teach. And I'm a person that loves to interact and help others. And I think that no matter what I'm doing, I want to be helping other people. And the way that I can help people is by sharing knowledge, sharing passion, getting them excited about what they're doing. That idea of mentoring, that idea of encouragement is really who I am. My great-grandmother, when I was growing up, she lived to be almost 100. I'm from Maryland originally. My great-grandmother, always since I can remember, 4 or 5 years old, my great-grandmother would say, here comes my little preacher boy. That's what she called me, because she always thought, you're going to go on and become a minister. You're going to be a pastor or a preacher, because I love being up in front of an audience. I love inspiring, I hope, and mentoring and encouraging. And that's what I do every day in my job, whether it's one-on-one with a faculty member or a student or in front of 300 students in a class. That's what I do, is share knowledge. But I love that I get to do it in a way that I enjoy, and that includes bringing animals into the equation. And so I'm often bringing turtles and snakes and birds and salamanders and different things into class and using those in my teaching. Ranger Nick started when I was in Maryland when I worked for the Department of Natural Resources.
Okay.
And so everybody called me Ranger Nick there. I was a park ranger, and that just kind of stuck. And now the dean calls me Ranger Nick. Everybody calls me Ranger Nick, and I just love that.
Yeah.
And when Ray and I met all those years ago and we started talking about doing a segment together, I said, well, could we call it Ranger Nick? Because that's what everybody knows me as. And it's been amazing that that's been able to stick for as long. But that's who I am. I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher. I'm an encourager. I'm a mentor. I'm a person that cares about other people. And I don't care where you're from, what you do. I'm here to help, and I feel like that's what I can do. I mean that. I really, awesome. And I feed off of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think anybody that's been around you long enough can definitely testify to that. For sure.
Thanks.
But so a couple questions off of that. You
Sure.
said you're from Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
Where did the love of animals come from? Did it just kind of come naturally, or?
Yeah, I'd say from my mom for sure, first and foremost. My dad too, but my mom feeding the birds, feeding every animal that would come to the house, taking care of wildlife that was hurt or sick. That's where it came from. And growing up, 7, 8-year-old, I had aquariums all over the house that had turtles and snakes that I caught and put in there. And my mom remembers when I was 8 or 9 years old going to a neighbor's birthday party, and I was the entertainment at the party. I was the guy bringing the animals, putting on the nature show. Here I was, little 8-year-old Nick, up in front of an audience, holding a snake, talking about it. When I tell people this is all I really know how to do, that's it. That's all I've ever done, and that's all I know how to do is stand up there and teach and share information. And I never, ever get tired of it. That's another thing people say is, you've said the same thing for 30-some years. How do you not get tired of it? I said, it never gets old. Seeing that reaction from the audience, seeing the smiles, seeing that laughter, oh my gosh, it never gets old. I love it. So that's where it started, was my mom, and then being around other people that encouraged me. I've always been encouraged. No matter what I'm doing, people say, Nick, that's what you're quote unquote good at. I'm very humble. I don't like to say I'm good at anything. I like to talk is what I say. But everybody has always said, you need to pursue that because you love talking. Be a teacher. That's what you need to do. Yeah.
So what led you here? You know what? Like you have a PhD. You're a doctor, Nick Fuhrman. Like I said, you don't like to mention that.
I know. Yeah.
Quite the accomplishment.
Oh,
Anybody
thanks.
I stopped at a bachelor's. So
That's okay.
No thanks. I'm good. So how did you get to where you are now?
Oh, so first generation college student. My parents always encouraged me if I wanted to go to college, but I didn't have to. You know, my parents were like, this is going to open a door for you if you want to continue on with this Ranger Nick thing and being a park ranger or being a teacher. Going off to college is going to be important. So I started looking around at different schools around Maryland. At the time, in the late 90s, there wasn't a program in Maryland that was wildlife and forestry in a college. So Virginia Tech had a degree. You can get in forestry and wildlife there. And we went and visited Blacksburg, Virginia. And I had a dear friend that lived about 45 minutes away in Wytheville, Virginia, further down the interstate in Southwest Virginia. And I remember going to Virginia Tech and thinking, man, I love this environment. I love the mountains. And I really felt at home. Even though it's a big university, the College of Natural Resources felt like a home. It felt like these professors cared about students. They really enjoyed what they did. And I got that vibe. And then knowing that my friend, Mr. Bob, lived right down the road in Wytheville, that could be a hideout for me. That could be a place I could go to escape if I needed to. All those things put together led me to Virginia Tech. Now, I'll tell you, that first year at Virginia Tech, that was rough. As a first generation, living away from home, being in a dorm room with, I tell you, a roommate that wasn't the greatest guy. He's just kind of crazy. And I thought to myself, here I am living in this little room, far away from home, trying to do all the stuff on my own, your laundry, balance your time, not get overwhelmed. I came out of a little high school, and here I was at this big university struggling with grades, struggling with everything. Mm. And there were several times that I remember telling my parents, I don't know. I think I'm gonna head back home. And they said, if that's what you want to do, you can do that. If it's not giving up, if you don't want to do this, come on back. But I stuck it out a little bit longer. Once I got through that first year, I started getting into my classes, forestry, wildlife, that kind of stuff. And I loved it. And I started seeing success, and that helped me. Well, then I got that degree, thought I'd go back to Maryland, keep doing the Ranger Nick thing, work with those animals the rest of my life. But I had a professor at Virginia Tech that I really enjoyed her class, and she thought I was really good in that class. And she said, Nick, she said, I have an assistantship to do a master's degree with me if you would like to do that. I didn't even know what an assistantship was. Like, I didn't know that's where you get a stipend, and they waive your tuition.
Wow.
And I thought, well, dang, if I don't have to pay for it and they're going to pay me a little something to get this degree, well, I'll try it. But I still had that imposter syndrome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that, I'm not smart enough for a master's degree. So I went there and I worked on this master's. And when I was there, I was a teaching assistant, a TA, they call it.
Right.
And that meant I helped out with a course. I helped out with dendrology. And dendrology is tree identification.
Okay.
Right? So I got to go out every week with a small group of students, teach them about trees, how to identify different types of trees. It was the first time ever that I got to see the same group of people change over each week over those 15 weeks of a semester. When I did the Ranger Nick thing in Maryland, I might go and speak to 500 people in an auditorium for an hour, but then I'd leave. I never knew if they learned anything or if they remembered anything. I never knew. It was the first time I got to see a difference I could make and how I could really mentor and care about these students, and they enjoyed that. Mm-hmm. And I thought, maybe a classroom kind of educator is more for me. So make a long story short, don't hold this against me, but I went back to Maryland a little bit, and I had an opportunity to come open at the University of Florida. Ugh. And I got to know, my wife can't stand them. I went there, did a PhD, focused in environmental education, studied the use of animals in teaching, just like I had done my whole life. I graduated from there, and I was convinced I wanted to be a professor. That's what I wanted to do. And I went back to Virginia Tech for a little over a year. Okay. And then an opportunity came open here at UGA. A couple of colleagues of mine were working here at the time, and they said, Nick, we're about to release a position that really looks like you'd be a good fit for it. And I thought, I had been to Atlanta one time before. Like, I didn't know a lot about Georgia. And I thought, what the heck? I'm going to go down and apply. And that was it. That was 2008. And so 17 years later, here I am. My wife, family. It's funny how doors open. And you just go, okay, that was meant to be. So, and it's been,
that's awesome.
Gosh, I'm so thankful to be at UGA. It's such a wonderful place.
Awesome, yeah. I actually I don't like Florida. I don't hold that against you.
Okay.
If you went to University of Tennessee, maybe we'd be talking a different story. I'm just kidding.
We don't do orange in our house at all. Now, Virginia Tech has orange. I'm all right with orange and maroon,
Yeah.
But we don't do orange. All the schools with orange, my wife would not allow it. So
yeah. So in your classroom now, you still teach. And what is it about the classroom setting? Like you said, you went the auditorium route, but you felt more personable getting to watch people. What about that aspect, is so intriguing or so makes you so passionate about it, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think getting to know people, each of those students by name, where they're from, what they enjoy, plugging in their previous experiences into my class, getting to see them smile when I come into the room and that they're excited to be there, because maybe I'm excited to be there. Well, I'm always excited to be there, and I think that's contagious.
Right.
They get excited to be there. I love forming that relationship. I love knowing that I think they know I care about them, and I really do.
Right.
And sadly, sometimes in a big university, that's becoming more and more rare. There's a lot of professors that present information. And I think there's a big difference between presenting and teaching. Yeah. And teaching is about relationships. It's about having fun with these students. It's about doing activities together and reflecting on those activities. I spend a lot of time teaching about teaching. Okay. And a lot of times that means overcoming public speaking anxiety. How do I help students overcome anxiety about standing up in front of an audience and opening their mouth and talking? And animals help a lot with that. But I know that these students are going to feel vulnerable. And so I'm going to do everything I can to make them feel comfortable and encouraged, where they can make mistakes, and I'm here to help them. And so when they do that and they put themselves out there and they get up in front of the audience, they hold a turtle, they talk about it, and they go, well, gosh, that was easier than I thought. I wasn't all that scared and nervous. And they see themselves grow. That's what's so cool. And I love that relationship building with them. I love caring about students. And I love knowing that, we forget this, every day when one of those students, at least one, walks in that room, somebody in that room's got all kinds of stuff going on in their life. Who knows what's going on with wherever. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe for 45 minutes, maybe for an hour and 15 minutes in this class, I can distract them away from that. And we can go on a little journey together in this lesson and have some fun. And that's what they'll tell me. They'll say, I come in here and I don't think about everything else. I'm just with Ranger Nick doing this, and it's a good thing. So in a way, it's kind of like a support group, sometimes when you come in. And that's how I think about it. It really is. And I'm telling you, John, I say this all the time. If they took students out of my job, I would quit tomorrow. It is the best part of my job. I love it. It's just the coolest thing.
Now, remind me, you may have said it earlier, but remind me, what subjects do you not specifying, but what subjects do you specialize in? There we go. Specialize in.
Yeah. So I specialize in teaching and learning primarily. Okay. So I teach, one of my classes is teaching with animals. So it's about how do you teach, pedagogy is what it's called, but use animals to help you get across a learning objective, evaluate learning, structure a lesson, engage with an audience, move them to action. I teach an intro to environmental ed class, which is what environmental education is. It's if you want to work in a nature center, a zoo, an aquarium, a museum, how do you do that? How do you engage with visitors and teach them when they're not really there to learn? They're there to have fun. How do you do that? And then I don't anymore since I took on this administrative role, but I used to teach statistics, advanced stats. And I love that because for whatever reason I enjoy, and maybe I'm a little good at data analysis, and I love changing people's minds about, you can do this. It's not as hard as you think to run this analysis. And I used to do that, and it was a blast to do that. So I specialize in teaching and learning, but I also specialize in data analysis. What do you do with this information you get to answer a question, which is a lot of fun.
Awesome. Yeah. Now, I'm going to transition now to the Ranger Nick on the farm monitor.
Yeah.
You mentioned kind of how, you mentioned the background with that and how long you've been there. Mm-hmm. How does those two worlds collide? So often, obviously it's once a month, but how do they collide so well? Like you mentioned earlier a little bit about how you're enthusiastic about people's reactions, the energy that they bring, but how do those two conjoin so easily for you?
Yeah, well, I've got to say, first and foremost, Ray DeLessio has encouraged me to be me.
Okay.
And that's something that the more I've learned from him, he's become a best friend. The more I've learned from him about my personality and encouraging my personality, he's never told me to be somebody I'm not. Yeah. He's told me, and he's been in the TV business a long time, he says sometimes people will tell you to put on a certain persona. Mm-hmm. He's never done that. He's always said, Nick, you just keep doing you. Just do you, and that people are going to enjoy that. So I've been encouraged in that way. But the way the TV side is meshed, even with teaching, there are so many of my students, and sometimes it's their grandparents. They'll tell me that, my granddad watches Farm Monitor every weekend. And when I told him that I'm taking this class with Nick Fuhrman, he's like, is that Ranger Nick? And he just lit up. And the number of people, I tell Ray all the time, I can't believe people watch our segment. Yeah. I can't believe people talk about it. I still am amazed by that. And so when my students tell me, my parents or whoever watches it, that is just the most humbling thing to me. And like they'll tell their grandparents, because they'll ask, the grandparents will say, is he like that in class? And they say, oh yeah, he's like that all the time. He's fired up. Yeah. That is not an act. That I cannot help that, but that is just so cool. So I am just so grateful for the Farm Monitor and for what Ray has done for me and opening that door 12 years ago when he took a chance. So I came into an office and he said, well, let me come up and interview you. And that's how it started. And then we started down this path of doing a monthly segment. And 127 or 8 of these things later, it's crazy.
That is wild.
I love it. I look forward to it every month. And I tell you, not only do I look forward to it because I know that maybe it's making somebody smile, but I just look forward to hanging out with Ray and being together with Ray. It's just a blast every month. It really is. Learning from him and hanging out with him. Yeah.
How do you, I'm always curious, because I obviously I don't know how many people, or maybe you don't even know. I'm the one that puts the show together each month. I edit it together and get it where it needs to go. And so I'm obviously very involved with the process of getting it, getting it edited together and whatnot. Ray does the segment itself, but I edit the whole show together, of course. But the topics are just, I find those interesting. And where do you, I guess with you were more on like the environmental side of things, and obviously our program is more agricultural based.
Right.
How do those two combine for you?
Yeah.
Are those a natural fit or?
Yeah. So here's one thing for me, and probably the past year or year and a half, we've been kind of in this trench of more production ag.
Okay.
We've been doing a lot of row crop stuff. And I'll tell you, my background's forestry, environmental ed. I'm not a production ag guy.
Right.
But what has worked so well is that when I come up with these topics and I identify who I'm going to interview, who's going to be a guest, what I love about it is because I don't have the background, I ask the questions that I know the folks at home might be wondering about that don't have the background either.
Yeah.
So I'm learning along with the folks at home. Whereas if I had the background, I might forget, oh, not everybody knows that, Nick. So
Right. Yeah.
I'm asking the questions that I know somebody sitting there in South Georgia is like, well, I don't know. What does that mean?
Yeah.
And so that's what happens there.
Yeah.
And that's been such a great thing to be able to do. But I see ag and environmental education and natural resource management, all that goes together. It's all influencing the landscape. And what I'm trying to do is just build an aha moment for folks that they walk away from the segment and go, I didn't know that. I had no idea that ... And that's a cool thing, to be able to do. And even if somebody's heard about something before, a topic, maybe we introduce a different angle to them that they never thought about. And I love thinking of it that way, that I'm bringing something new to them.
Awesome. To your point about, thinking about like learning alongside the audience per se, right? Like a good example of that, I literally thought about that today. It's funny that you mentioned that because Pam Knox, she's an agricultural climatologist. I interview her all the time. She's so smart. It's unreal. Like it's so intelligent, so goodness gracious, knows everything about the climate and just any question you could ask, she'll answer. Any question you could throw at her, she got it.
Yeah.
And I often prepare notes and I prepare questions, but honestly, it's some of my best segments with her. Every time I've done something is just asking her a simple question of something that like La Nina. Or an El Nino. I guess I just it never hit me how important those things are. And so every time I'm around her, I kind of go to the basics, if you will. Kind of like what you're saying. If I can't understand it, how can I expect someone at home to understand it?
That's right.
And so I'm going to learn as I go too. And so those turn out to be some of the best for sure.
And you know what, too? You said something there, too. Going in there and having that conversation. One of the things I've learned with guests, I try not to tell them a whole lot before we get going because I don't want them to think about their perfect answer.
Right.
And then when the camera's running, they try to say that same perfect answer that they've memorized, and then they goof it up, and we got to redo it. I just say, look, I'm just going to throw you this question. Let's just chat. Just forget that camera's there.
Right.
And all of a sudden, we're having a conversation. And they're forgetting that there's these people listening and watching. And I love that. We're just talking together. And sometimes that foundational stuff, I think a person like Pam, great teacher, some of the best teachers realize that you got to build off the foundation. We got to know the foundation. And sometimes we forget that. We go right to the crazy, sophisticated stuff because it sounds really important and makes us sound smart. But let's go to the foundation. Where does this come from? And that's a sign of a real expert. When you can explain it to a fourth grader so they can understand, hey, you know what you're doing.
So back to your role here at UGA in the classroom rather. What is it? What do you? How do I word this question here? I'm trying not to ask it too wordy, but what is your overall goal with your class each semester? Do you specifically talk a lot with people that are involved? Maybe their degree is in some type of forestry. Maybe it's coming out of Warnell, or do you? Is it more like an elective sometimes too?
Yeah.
I guess does that make sense?
Sure. Oh yeah. And I tell you, John, there's two different avenues.
Okay.
So one route is going to be students that are in a science area.
Okay.
And they're with me because they want to be a better science communicator. So they're with me to learn how to package a message, how to share it with an audience in an edutaining way, how to move that audience from awareness of an environmental issue or problem all the way down to action. What do I do about this? How do I act to help and do away with this problem? So awareness to action. And along that path, I got to work with them on public speaking anxiety.
Okay.
I got to work with them on communication anxiety to get them to that point. So that's a big thing. I mean, and I tell the students, I say, don't worry that you don't know enough about something. Worry more about creating an environment and a place where people can learn. You'll learn with them. If you don't worry if somebody asks you a question you don't know the answer to, that's okay. Worry more about creating an environment where people can learn, where the noise is turned down, where they don't have distractions and you got them. There's an art to that. Worry more about being yourself up there. That's important. So that's one group of students that are going on as a biologist, as a wildlife manager, and I'm helping them with communication.
Okay.
The other route, I teach a big class called Natural History of Georgia. And it's a 1,000 level class. 90% of the class is business students. So they're finance, management systems stuff.
Yeah.
They work a lot with spreadsheets and indoors. And they take that class as one of these major standard classes that you have to take at UGA to get a core concept kind of a credit. So they're taking it as a life science core, we call it.
Okay.
So they come in there. They don't have a lot of experience with trees and birds and soil and any of that. And I'm in there to get them excited about nature, to get them excited about the outdoors. We talk about bird calls every week. Every week we learn 2 nature sounds, different bird songs that you can hear right on our campus. They get so into that. They learn about soil and tree identification and the different parts of Georgia and venomous and non-venomous snakes. And I bring animals in all the time. And it's like, get excited about nature. Okay. And that is the coolest thing in that class. So you've got that group of students that I'm just getting them excited about nature. And a lot of times they take that class and they're like, well, maybe I'll get a minor in wildlife science or forestry or something, because they had no idea that it was so cool to learn about the outdoors in Georgia. Yeah. So that's a lot of fun, knowing that you have an audience that has no experience with this stuff, and I can show them things that I take for granted. You know, I walking outside hearing birds sing, yeah, I know what type of bird it is. And I thought the first time I taught the class, I thought, I wonder if students would like to know, oh, that's a Carolina wren singing right there. That's a northern cardinal singing. And I thought, I'm going to try it. They're either going to love it or hate it. And the first time I did it, they get so into it. And they'll tell me, oh, I was telling my mom we were walking to dinner and I heard that mourning dove. And I said, I know that's a mourning dove. And they're so excited. That is the coolest thing. So you've got that group of students that you're building excitement about the outdoors, about nature. And you've got a group of students that you're helping them with communication, helping them communicate what they know to others in a fun way. Yeah. And I tell you, as the years go on, that stuff, I know I'm biased, that stuff is getting more and more important because we're spending more and more time not talking to each other. Yeah. We're looking at a phone or with our earbuds in or whatever. We're not communicating. And so students need help with that.
Yeah. It's, it's really crazy. I actually thought about that. Funny that you mentioned that. I went to New York City a couple weeks ago. Okay. And everyone walks around with AirPods or headphones or something in. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, New York, I think, has like 8.5 million people, 9 million people. Oh, yeah. I'm like, how lonely people probably really feel in this city. And I'm like, how? And I'm thinking too, like, how do you make friends? Because it's hard enough to make friends now as just in Georgia. And to your point of even when I went here, we are so, because of social media and because of technology, we are so removed from the social aspect of life. It's crazy, and it's getting worse, I think. Yep. My nieces, my oldest one is 14. I'm like, do you even know how to like call on the phone? Like, right. Do you know what that is? Yeah. So it really is intriguing, and I would love to sit in one of your classes at some point just to witness it. I appreciate it. And like I said, we have a lot of fun. I will say it is a lot of work to think about ways to get students engaged with one another, to get them talking to one another. And I'll tell you something that's been wild. When I was a college student, if the professor said, we're going to do this group assignment, oh, I'm going. Yeah. Oh, great. Because that means if there's 4 of us, 2 of us are really going to do the work. The other 2 are just going to coast along, Yeah. Now, when like in the big class, I've got 40-some teams in there of 4 students each. It's a bigger class.
Now they really love it. I build these teams based on their personality style. All right, so everybody takes this assessment. Right?
Okay.
There's 4 styles. The best team has each of the 4 styles.
That's awesome.
So the team is made up of 4 different styles, which complement one another. Everybody brings a certain talent. So we get in these teams. And I think it's because a lot of these students go to class. They got their earbuds in. They're looking at their phone. They go to class. They're alone, as you say. Mm-hmm. They sit in class, they look at PowerPoint, they don't talk to anybody, and then they leave, and they go back to their car or their dorm or whatever. And now they're in a class where they're in a team, and they're talking with one another, they're making friends, and they're accountable to each other. Because I better not miss class Thursday because my team's counting on me.
Right.
They are really getting into teamwork, I'm seeing now.
That's awesome.
And I think it's because they are kind of lonely, and that they need that forced social interaction to have everybody together and work together. And that's what they're going to have to do in the working world, of course.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
For sure.
I love it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, the animal aspect of it, because I know, like, one time I distinctly remember you came to the home office in Macon and you brought a corn snake.
Oh,
I think
yeah,
it was
yeah.
a corn snake.
Okay.
Yeah, it definitely was. I'm not a big fan. I don't do snakes.
Okay.
I don't, like, I'm always, like, laughing. I'm like, if we see a snake, it's ever meant for themselves. Like, rest in peace. If you don't make it, sorry. Like, I don't do
knocking
it.
people down.
But I'm curious to see, how do they react to the snake? Like, whenever you bring animals in.
Yeah.
Like, I want to just talk on that.
Oh, yeah. So before, especially with snakes, I'll tell the class, listen, and I always keep everything a secret until I take whatever it is out. And I say, listen, next time we come together in class, so next class, I'm going to bring something in here that starts with an S and ends with Nake. And I'm going to how are we feeling? Like early in the semester, how would you feel about that?
Gotcha.
And every once in a while, there'll be a student that has real anxiety. And I'll say, listen, if you need to sit further back in the room, I've had students that have to leave the room. And I get it. But what's wild is by the end of the semester, when I talk about these animals, they all have names. I talk to them. I literally snuggle on them. I put my cheek up against a snake and say, it's just a great little animal. They have a lot of empathy toward that animal. By the end of the semester, that student that was nervous is up there touching it, there holding it, because then they're like, wow, this thing is really pretty sweet. This thing is not out to get me.
Yeah.
This thing is used as an ambassador in Ranger Nick's house, and he takes it everywhere, and people hold it all the time. And they become to care about that animal. And then they start looking at other snakes and other things, and they go, all right, I have a new respect for that. And so the animals, they help so much in a class, not only with rapport between me and students, but also with that anxiety. When a student's holding something, especially a snake that's moving around a little bit more in their hands, they don't think people are looking at them. They think the audience is looking at that snake, and they are, and that makes them less nervous. Huh. They'll say, gosh, people aren't staring at me. They're looking at this snake, and they calm down. So think about that. A snake can reduce anxiety towards speaking. Who would have thought? People would have thought they increase anxiety. And the students have told me that. They say, I love holding a snake because it's moving a lot, and the audience is looking at it, and they're excited to take it out and show the group. And that's where it begins. They're excited to talk to an audience. They're not dreading it. They're not fumbling with their note cards and shaking. They are excited. Let me show you this thing. And it's so cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. What's the most, we only have, I'm looking at the clock now. We have about 9 minutes left.
Okay.
So I want to try to get in all my little questions here. But
sure.
What's the most memorable, maybe, creature? Let's just call it a creature, because I know. I think you also deal with, I'm sure, insects sometimes too, or is it just mostly just like animals?
Yeah, not as much on the insect side, John. People ask me, what am I afraid of? Listen, cockroaches, I don't do them.
Oh no.
And you hear those big hissing cockroaches you'll see at museums and stuff. Oh God, no, I don't do that. Okay. But I would say when I worked with birds of prey, so when I worked with owls and hawks, it was always neat to bring them in.
Okay.
Owls have a lot of personality. And it's wild to watch an audience watch that bird, watch the way their head moves, watch the way their eyes blink, to see something like that up close.
Yeah.
I would say, this is a stretch on your question, but a memorable animal. I had a student dress up as a turtle one time.
That's hilarious.
So this was and I'll tell you this story. This was a football player.
Okay.
And I will admit, I judged this football player at the start of the semester because I thought, what is this guy doing taking this teaching with animals class? He thinks it's going to be an easy A. He's going to sit there and just coast along. So I thought, okay, we'll see how he does. His name was John, all right?
Okay.
So John takes this class. John got so into this class.
Yeah.
Make a long story short, students have to build a 20-minute long lesson in teams. They teach that lesson in my class first. We critique it. And then they teach the same lesson with a group called Extra Special People over here, individuals with special needs. My students go there and they teach those with special abilities is what I say. And I love it. I've done that my whole career. I love working with those with special needs.
Okay.
So John, on the day of their presentation, their teaching, one of his teammates said, hey, Ranger Nick, John and I are going to go out in the hall. We got to get ready. When it's our time to teach, can you call us? We're going to come in. And I'm like, you're going to get ready. So, okay. So they were doing a lesson comparing turtles and birds. There's a lot of similarities between a turtle and a bird, if you think about it. Beaks, scales, claws. It's a lot of cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Honest, but yeah.
So they're building this lesson. John's out in the hall. His teammate says, okay, Ranger Nick, we're ready to come in. The door opens. Here comes John, big football player guy, wearing this head-to-toe turtle costume. I mean, legit turtle costume.
That's hilarious.
The whole class was blown away to see this big guy that I think they thought, oh, this guy's just going to coast along. John got so into it. He did the same talk at ESP. The kids loved it. Of course, they knew he was a football player. They wanted pictures with him and all this. Do you know John graduated from UGA. He got a master's degree from Clemson in special education.
That's awesome.
And he teaches special needs. And you just,
awesome.
you think about that. That's the most memorable. I'll never forget it to think about that guy and how on the first day of class, I thought, I wonder what he's doing here. And look at him now, out working with individuals with special needs. I love that. And his passion, he had the whole turtle costume.
Right.
That was so neat to see that. And it inspired the whole class. The whole class, that raised the bar. Everybody wanted to do it just as well as John and his team. So It was so cool.
I'm curious because you mentioned that you bring like owls. Where do you get these animals at?
Yeah. So I used to get them from Bear Hollow, which is a local teaching zoo right over here in Athens. Yeah. One of my great friends used to work over there and needed some help with the birds, so I did that. Others we'll bring in from my friends that work for Georgia DNR or the Macon Museum of Arts and Sciences. They'll bring up birds, and we'll bring them into class, and it's a lot of fun to show students the birds of prey. When I was in Maryland working for the Department of Natural Resources, we had a lot of birds of prey, and I used them in teaching, and they were a lot of fun. It's really cool. Yeah.
I've actually I'm fascinated by nature.
Yeah.
Love to be outside. Love to hike. This fall has been really great for that. It's been really good for my mental health. Well,
good.
Love being outside. I grew up on a farm, but one of my best, I love birds of prey. They're awesome.
Yeah.
But I guess about 4 years ago we had a bald eagle come up on our property.
Man.
And I actually managed to get a picture of it. It stayed around for a few days. I don't really know the nature of how far away they'll hunt or whatever, or maybe where it was passing through. I have no idea. But I could not believe how huge it was.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just fascinated by it. And I can't imagine. And I've seen an owl out in the wild one time. They're huge.
Yep.
I didn't realize how big they were. I know that I know the different species can be a little bit smaller. But, but I love birds of prey. It was awesome. But
man, it is. I love them too. We take students out at the end of the semester doing owl prowl.
Okay.
And we go out in the woods over here, right off campus. It's safe. And I play owl calls, barred owl hoots through a Bluetooth speaker connected to my phone. And these barred owls fly in and sit up in a tree and look at all my students down on the ground at night. And I got a flashlight on them, and the kids flip out.
That's awesome.
And it is they are all around us, and the students forget that they live here too.
Yeah. So really, you really don't realize many how immersed, or not really immersed, but how they've adapted to just everything around us, and how my dad always says about snakes, for instance. He goes, if you go looking for them, you're gonna find them.
Yeah.
He goes, so don't look for them. I'm like, well, easier said than done. I'd rather not, this Georgia has venomous ones. So
Uh-huh.
I'm like, no, I'm going to look. I'm like,
Right.
I don't want to step on one, but
Right.
thanks, I appreciate it. But anyways, that's awesome. But that's an awesome story. I wish,
Thanks.
I would love to go. I love that so much. I didn't know you did that.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
really intrigued by that.
Anytime you can take students out and do something new with them, show them a turtle, a snake, a salamander, take them out in the woods in a creek with them. Every year that goes by, they're more and more removed from that. And the surprises are bigger and bigger. Things that I would think, oh, okay, it's a turtle. Oh, my gosh. I bring a box turtle into class. You would think I had an elephant up on stage. All the phones are out. Nobody can believe that I've got this turtle. And I just think, well, it's just a box turtle, but students are removed from this.
Yeah.
They don't get out in the woods. They're not doing stuff. So I love I can introduce it to them. And it's more and more exciting the more exciting they get. It's just, it's so cool.
Well, last thing I'll say, just because that was a great point and honestly a great way to end it.
Okay.
But just like we truly are so far removed from everything that even our grandparents, even my parents used to experience. And then the further generation you go, obviously, we talk about in agriculture a lot. And so it's crazy to think about just even that aspect of it. And it's something that we take for granted, nature, honestly.
Yep.
But I really do. It really is intriguing and beautiful when you get a chance to really see it up close, for sure.
That's right. And sometimes as a teacher, spending that time doing those special things, I'd rather do that with a class than teach more content. Let's go out and see something in depth and experience it and reflect on it versus let's sit in here and look at this PowerPoint. We'll go outside. And there's a lot of risk in that. You take a bunch of people outside. Sometimes things don't go like you thought. I mean, the bird isn't always going to be sitting there when you think they would be sitting. But being outside with students and bringing them into experiences like that and showing them stuff, it's just, that never gets old. It is just the wildest thing to see. Their reaction is priceless. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's going to do it. Again, thank you for this.
Thank you,
was
John.
great.
Thank you.
I learned something actually, which is fun.
Hey, there you go.
But yeah, I appreciate the time, Nick, and it was great to see you again. And I appreciate you doing this for me and with me today. So.
My pleasure. Thank you, John. Thanks for everybody that listens to this. We appreciate y'all.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Growing On podcast. Be sure to tune in soon for our next episode. Until then, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done so already.